Within GE, you were obviously doing the contingent workforce side of it. Did that cross over into the services procurement side of things as well?
It did in a way because of some of the buying channels that we had created related to contingent workforce. And one in particular was a buying channel we created with a workflow process for GE's engineering services. That in an engineering environment, they're working on products, but they really don't have a lot of sourcing activity. We needed an outlet for a requester that needed a project with people to be able to move it forward, get a good contract in place, and then be able to execute on that scope of work. So we set up master agreements and an SOW workflow for GE to be able to make that happen. And it was quite successful for the businesses that chose to use it. And then when I went to Genpact, we weren't able to use that same workflow. That's when we decided to go and look for what was in the market. And that's where our introduction to Zivio came in to be able to bring an AI-driven tool that would support that buying channel. And that was an important piece to be able to then at Genpact provide that service to multiple customers. And we had some really good successes with it, and some customers didn't want to go to that level yet. They weren't ready for it, but then we had others that were like, "Yes, let's go," because we really want to move forward with one AI based tools, as well as being able to have that human in a loop to be able to guide their folks through the SOW process for a successful outcome.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it is amazing for people like you and I that are kind of on the sharp end of this when it comes to the whole services procurement part of that workforce conversation. Some companies are scared to move. They stick to they might not have they might have a very, very poor situation, but they're sometimes fearful of moving out of it. And I think that's something that will only change over time. It's the same with the AI side of it. For some people they're being very, very cautious with it, but that feels like that resistance is being reduced almost on a weekly basis. Um, it's
Yeah.
moving very, very quickly. I mean, having just been at ProcureCon in Vegas, the amount of conversations and the way that they're advancing around the use of AI is just incredible.
Yeah, I would agree. Last week, I was able to go to an ISM local chapter meeting in Houston, and they had their guest speaker was a one that's playing big in AI space. I won't name the company, but so they were able to give us a demonstration of what their tools do. And I think it's all pretty. I think it will work well, but I sitting in the chair, I felt a distinction between what is category strategy and strategic sourcing versus operations. And at Genpact, we had a very different operations group that once we did the contracts, the stakeholders and those customers, the way they process POs, all the way to the AP process as well. That was the sweet spot for AI. And I think that that's going to be a piece that continues to grow and evolve. I think that the pieces that are more human in the loop, like creating strategies, are going to benefit by having the ability to be able to get good data, get market intel in a much different way, much quicker than in what we had been doing in the past on going to multiple locations just to find market rates for labor, for example, or engineers or project rates or legal or whatever the services were. So I think that that's coming, but I haven't seen any evidence of that really taking place to be able to help a category manager yet. I think if anything, that's the piece that's going to be a little bit behind. But the operations side, man, it's going full force, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, as the availability of data and the sophistication of the organizations being able to manipulate that data, I think that's going to then feed through to the strategic side of it, where people are looking at forward planning, category strategy, supplier strategy, all that sort of stuff. is going to feed out of it, because for a lot of organizations where their start point is just very, very little data or very poor data. And so they're kind of stuck at this point in the moment where they haven't got the efficiencies in place or the capture in place to be able to leverage that. And as you say, the impact that AI has had, I always say it's had two major impacts on services procurement. One is it's kind of taken away the excuse of organizations and departments saying it's just too complicated. Large amounts of unstructured data, lots of variation, giant scopes, hard to write scopes, hard to measure, compare, all that sort of thing, hard to define stuff. Well, AI takes away a lot of the excuses there because it can be extremely valuable in those workflows. But the other area where it's had a huge impact is empowering or enabling technology providers to make the user experience better. And I think that's the critical thing. You can put technology and tools in place, you can try and engineer great processes, but if people don't follow them, it obviously doesn't work. So that for me is the second one, is just that user experience now with modern tools, especially when you've got dedicated approach to whatever problem is you're trying to solve. AI can be very, very useful at helping out in all the different areas just to make that journey much easier. Just like we see if we're using an internet browser these days, where you've got Copilot or Google Gemini helping you along the way, or whatever it might be, it's becoming integrated into how we do stuff these days. And I think it is enabling some great leaps forward, which, as you say, is very exciting.